Welcome to November 15th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. A meeting was held at 6 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall for clarification of the agenda. The following is the official agenda for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Discussion and commission actions will be limited to those items on the agenda. Any citizen who wishes to address the commission shall first be recognized by the chair and shall give his or her name for the record. If a citizen wishes to read any documentation of any sort to the commission, he or she shall first seek permission from the chair. There will be a 3-minute time limit for the public testimony. Aislinn, will you call roll?
Bartu?
Here.
Chandler?
Here, I have nothing to disclose.
Fenwick?
Here and nothing to disclose.
Klein?
Here and nothing to disclose.
Geyer?
Here, nothing to disclose.
Here and nothing to disclose.
Here with nothing to disclose.
All right, and with that, we will move on to agenda item number 2, which is approval of the minutes. The commission may wish to waive the oral reading of the P&Z clarification and meeting minutes held October 11th, 2023, and to approve the minutes as written. Any question or discussion regarding those?
No. Madam Chair, I move that do I have to make the motion to include waiving it? Okay. I move that we approve the minutes from October 11th, 2023 as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Hewlett and a second by Fry. Aislinn, will you call vote?
Yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Bartu?
Yes.
Chandler?
Yes.
Fenwick?
Yes.
Geyer?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
We will move on to agenda item number 3, the public hearing, a city-initiated text amendments to Title 15.2 Sign Code and Title 17 Zoning Regulations. This time has been set aside for the commission to hear comments from the public regarding city-initiated text amendments to Title 15.2 Sign Code and Title 17 Zoning Regulations. Let me explain the public hearing procedures for you guys. The applicant will present for 10 minutes, and then there will be a 3-minute public testimony. Those that are presenting or testify will state your name for the record. While giving testimony and questions and comments, you should be pertinent to the application and should only be addressed to the commission. During the public hearing, there should be no questions, comments, or applause from the audience. Should the meeting go longer than 8 p.m., no, just kidding. The commission may take a scheduled 10-minute break. Commission members must make their decisions regarding the application on facts already in the record and information presented during the public hearing. Protocol requires that commission members and audience be recognized by the commission chair prior to speaking. So with this, I declare the public hearing open, and I would like to invite staff to come forward.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. Jim Anglesey, Long Range Planner for the City of Pocatello. Planning and Development Services staff is seeking Commission's recommendation to either approve or deny the proposal to repeal Code Section 1520, the Sign Code, as well as changes to Title 17 zoning regulations, and prepare a draft for City Council to consider. Based on feedback from the Our Valley, Our Vision Community Values Survey and the need to update our sign code, staff conducted a survey from December 2022 to January 2023, which consisted of a visual preference survey, how signs should be regulated, sign standards within downtown and along the Yellowstone corridor, as well as perceived visual aesthetics of the area, and how participants decide to visit a business. The survey was advertised via various social media platforms along with traditional media outlets. Within 2 days of the survey being opened, around 100 responses were recorded. Within 2 weeks, nearly 300 responses were recorded. And by the end of 4 weeks, just under 400 responses were recorded. The response rate shows residents are passionate and eager to have their voices heard on this issue. And just in comparisons with the comprehensive plan had just over 800, and that took 6 months for us to receive. And so that just kind of gives you a comparison of the rate of response that we received. Even though it was low, that's really as good as we can get as far as city surveys go. Staff took the findings of the survey before mayor and council in a work session on February 9th, 2023, where staff received guidance on drafting a new sign code. A draft was presented to city council in a work session on July 13th, 2023, where staff received guidance to prepare a draft for the public hearing process. The proposed draft is focused on balancing business rights to advertise with the desire of the interests of the entire community. Furthermore, this draft is focused on making regulations clearer for everyone, whether they be an experienced sign contractor or a member of the general public. Notification was published in the Idaho State Journal on October 31st, 2023 for this public hearing, and again on November 7th, 2023, both as a display ad and a legal notice as required in city code. Notice information was also provided to local television and radio stations to include in their public service announcements. Additionally, notice information was also posted on all social media platforms. Regarding the proposed amendments to the sign code, for the benefit of the public, I'm going to read just the summary that you have in your packet for you to look at as I go along. City Code, Section 1520, the sign code, we're proposing a full repeal of current sign regulations and integrate new sign standards into Title 17 zoning regulations. In 1701-150 definitions, we're proposing adding definitions regarding signs into the existing definitions section in Title 17. 1707 sign standards. This would be a new chapter in Title 17 that would outline the new sign standards. And just a few highlights of what would be proposed. Signs that do not require a permit include face changes as defined. Prohibited signs include signs on a property with no established use, off-premise signs or billboard signs. Painted wall signs, window signs, and temporary signs do not require a licensed sign contractor to install, but still requires a permit. Licenses may be revoked by the planning director and building official rather than the city council. This is similar to other licenses in the city, and they would still be able to appeal the revocation to council. The removal of abandoned or neglected signs would be required. For sign lighting, it would be enhanced to match existing light standards as found in current code 1705-400, which includes the proposal for residential and RCP zones. Regarding external light sources, would require a full cutoff and fully shielded light. Internal light sources would be recessed and blacked out with only messages illuminated. For commercial, external light sources, full cutoff and fully shielded, and internal light sources may be internally lit, and neon signs may be utilized. For hours of lighting, signs shall not be illuminated from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., or the hours of operation of a business, whichever is less restrictive. For temporary signs, required to pull a permit, which is valid for 30 days. We also have, we have after council with legal, we do have some issues that we will be addressing in the temporary signs regarding content-based regulation. And that is one thing that we do look to editing in the proposed draft as it currently is. The creation of a master sign plan for multi-tenant properties. This would be required for all new multi-tenant developments. Existing multi-tenant developments may utilize advantages of the master sign plan, which include an increase of 10% in sizing requirements. Common signs may be increased to 1.5 square foot per linear foot of property frontages, no greater than 120 square feet. and they may have multiple EMC displays provided that they have a spacing of 150 feet. Rather than having a max overall sign allowance formula as in the current code, this code provides a max for each individual sign type. It doesn't matter how many different types of signs are on the property, so long as it meets standards for each individual sign type. The code calls out sign types. Not all types may be utilized or common, but they have been put in as examples of how and what would work for individual businesses. Sign exceptions are proposed to be removed. Rather, if the applicant or owner sees a hardship with the code, they may go through the variance process. And then finally, legal nonconforming signs are now considered as part of the administrative provisions section of Title 17 as found in 1701-170. Again, this is just a summary. It's not all inclusive of what is included in the code. And so just take that into consideration. We have received written correspondence, all of which should be provided to you. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for staff?
Yes. So can you help me understand why sign code belongs in zoning regulations, why we won't have sign code anymore? What was the thinking behind that?
The sign code was put in Title 15, which is administered by the building department. And we're the ones that sign off on it and do it and oversee all the regulations of signage. And so it's kind of the outlier that everything that we deal with is in Title 16 and 17, but this one was in 15. And so since we administer it, we were proposing moving it into the sections that we administer.
Okay. Plus where it varies depending on zone, it makes sense to me.
Correct, yep.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. And one of the things you mentioned that part of the master sign plan that they may have multiple EMC displays. What's an EMC display?
An EMC is a digital sign.
Okay.
So electronic message center.
Oh, okay. Is that the kinds that they roll by, or is that?
They're the electronic sign.
Just all of the
essentially
LED
a TV
ones.
screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you talk to me about how the variance process is different from what the sign exception process is? What will that look like?
They're very similar. If you look at if you compare the languages side by side, it essentially talks about hardship. Signs, it talks about like hardship of advertising for a business, whereas the variance talks about just a hardship in general. But they're almost verbatim, same language. But the sign exception talks about just replaces just broad variance with sign. And so they would meet the same end. Mm-hmm. And so instead of having two processes, just combining it into the one variance process, it would essentially be the same process.
Okay. And then my last question concerns the legal non-conforming signs. Okay, they're now considered as part of the administration provisions. Can you talk to me about what that means and what is the plan for legal non-conforming signs?
So the administrative provisions is what governs legal non-conforming structures and uses. Mm-hmm. And where a sign would be considered a structure, we figured that instead of having a separate section on just for legal non-conforming signs, group that in together.
With all the other legal non-conforming?
And anything that's legal non-conforming would be administered by the administrative provisions section.
Okay.
Currently we have the two sections, one that addresses legal non-conforming signs and one that addresses everything else that's legal non-conforming.
This just combines.
And so this would bring it all in. The changes to Title 17 that you guys have already reviewed recently, we had proposed to add the word sign into that section to be inclusive of signage.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah.
Go, please.
Could you give me an example of a hardship description? I mean, it's one that you had recently, or just an example. I mean, not everybody knows we know what hardship is there, but what about your
A hardship is easier to describe just development in general rather than sign specific. A hardship would be if there was a legally platted lot that is too small to meet the setback standards or the minimum lot size of today's current standards. Say you have a 20-foot wide lot and you need 10-foot setbacks or 5-foot setbacks. And so you have this sliver of a building. Well, that would be potentially considered a hardship for development. And so a variance would allow wiggle room past, a variance from those different regulations that we currently have in place.
But with these signs, I understand that with like the lot restrictions and setbacks, but what about a sign? I mean, does that apply to the distance they're from setback on signs also?
So some examples of sign exceptions that we reviewed, for example, is signs that may, because of natural constraints, you can't see. Like a highway sign, there may be some type of natural thing that blocks the sign from your property. The variance to that would be maybe you need a little bit higher so you can see it over whatever's blocking it. And so sight line, the view to see a sign is potentially one thing to consider as a hardship.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. First, I want to thank staff. I know it's never easy trying to put a whole new code together and show appreciation to you guys for looking at the comments and realizing that there's probably some adjustments that need to be made. So thank you for that. And this is kind of directed at commission too. One thing to remember is I know one of the main questions in the survey that you put out was about advertisement and that people don't look for signs to make decision about where they're going to signs. But I think one of the biggest things we need to think about is safety and traffic and those kinds of things when we're looking at these, even to the point that if I'm headed to somewhere on Yellowstone and I'm not sure exactly where I'm going, that sign's going to help me know a few feet ahead where I need to turn so I can turn my blinker on in time. So those are important things. So, and with that, we do have, the site triangle that prohibits signs in those areas and things like that. One thing I think needs to be looked at before a revision is I think the verbiage for the hours for the signage is a little bit weird. It says it can be illuminated. It shall not be illuminated from a certain time or during business operation hours, so that needs to be adjusted, obviously.
Right.
And then just some, let's see, I asked lots of questions today, guys, and there's lots of questions about different ones. Can you explain what animation is? Because right now we have a lot of billboards that actually will show you one advertisement and then go and show another advertisement. Is that animation?
So that would be more of a transition. Animation is like moving pictures or video. So that's what we would describe as animation. And it lays out in the code, even in our current code, that we allow a certain time for transitions from each message, but animation is currently not permitted, and that would be moving pictures.
Okay. And then
Can I follow up on that? Does that include scrolling messages?
Scrolling is different. A scrolling marquee, if the message can't be read in its entirety on the screen, it does have the ability to scroll.
Okay.
And there's an 8-second rule of being able to
Sorry,
read
just want to clarify.
And then one thing I think that really needs to be addressed is the sidewalk signs. It shows the sidewalk signs that they're all permitted, but it does require a permit. To me, a business that is going to put out a sign to advertise their business on the sidewalk, we know historic downtown Pocatello does this a lot. They bring them in at night. I just think that maybe that can be addressed a little bit differently. And then I think you've already addressed the other things of making sure that we're following rules and laws, and we're not going to have a lawsuit because we're prohibiting certain content or things like that. So, any other questions for staff?
I don't have any questions, but I just have some comments on it. I don't know if you want to do them now or wait until the end, or?
Go ahead.
Okay. As far as, I know we talked about this 1707040 A4 about raceways. Obviously, there's going to be situations, pan-channel letters are going to require raceways due to the fascia of the building or no access to wire in the back. So I think maybe we need to put something in there with an that can be acceptable just for pan-channel letters.
Yeah.
And then a couple things on the commercial zones for wall signs. It says one sign per fascia, right? I think that's how it's worded. Is that correct?
Yeah, per frontage, yeah.
So my question is, so let's say we have Ridley's and it says Ridley's and it might say pharmacy. And so is that three different, if they have three different signs, or is that considered, because you're saying one sign per fascia per site. So is that not going to be allowed?
It's a good question. Right now, it currently says one.
Right. Okay. So we might need to address that. And then also we have a 90% of frontage for the signage length. I think that's too long. 75% is more of an industry standard that I've dealt with. Say we have a 20-foot frontage, and you're saying 90%, somebody can have a sign that's 18 feet long. Well, if we have three tenants next to each other, we only have 2 feet between each of their signs. It's very cluttered, and I know we're trying to clean up the clutter. And obviously, the better signs look on a building, the better the building looks, right? And also, I'd like to throw out the idea of you're saying a maximum height of 3 foot and 10 foot for the sign height. I think we should set kind of a way to word it is 2/3 of the height of the area to which the sign is attached, but no more than 3 foot or 10 foot. So we have an area above the windows that's 4 foot high. We don't want somebody or 10 foot high, somebody's allowed a 10-foot sign. We don't want that filled up 10 foot.
Gotcha.
So if we do 2/3 or even 75%, that way the sign floats in the area and doesn't fill it up. I think that also makes the building look cluttered. And then one other, for the clearance minimum height of 8 feet, I think maybe it should be a minimum 8 feet where there's pedestrian traffic. As an example, look at ICCU building in Chubbuck. They have buildings on the side of on side that's probably 3 feet from the ground. I don't know how else they would do that signage there, but there's no walkway there, so there's no risk of anybody walking into it or anything. Mm-hmm. And then my other concern is pole signs in the CG zone.
CG.
So we're allowing up to 30 feet. You're saying they can do a 30-foot sign. Do we really need more pole signs down Yellowstone? They're 30 foot tall. I would rather see a smaller height restriction on that, or maybe if we're pushing people more towards monument signs. I think right now you're saying 6 foot to 8 foot. Mm-hmm. Maybe if we get rid of pole signs or bring that sign down, maybe the compromise, we could say, okay, you could do a 10 to 12 foot monument sign there. And then I also know there was some concern about the setback that the ISA was talking about, 10 foot. I think 10 foot's become pretty standard in a lot of jurisdictions, but I think something way around that. If somebody has a 6 foot sign, okay, 6 foot setback. So whatever the height of the sign, that's what your setback needs to be. That could be a compromise there. So, but anything over 10 foot is 10 foot back, 8 foot back,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, and I think that's it at this point, but there's some of the things I saw going through this.
One thing regarding pole signs and their height.
Yeah.
One thing that we are proposing is the proximity to another sign, which
Right.
may limit the amount of pole signs as well.
Yeah.
Just based on what we have currently.
I know, it's just driving down
existing.
Yellowstone or in Pocatello Creek, you're like, okay, pole sign. It's just too much.
Yeah.
And then what are we doing with like Office Max? Does Office Max really need a sign that big going down Yellowstone? It's actually harder to see being that high up than it would be on a lower sign.
Okay.
No? Okay, thank you. Okay, you guys get to hear this for the third time. When you come to the podium, please state your name. Please remember to only address the commission and not the audience or the staff. You have 3 minutes to testify, and you will be asked to stop when time runs out. Please make sure you keep your questions and comments pertinent to the application, and please don't duplicate questions, comments, or concerns that we've heard from previous testimony today. When you do come up, please write your name on that sheet also, and if the first person wants to write it and then set it on that chair, and then who wants to speak next, sign up, and then you can pick it up. That'd be great. Just help keep things moving. So this time I would invite anyone providing testimony in support of the application to come forward. Don't all run at once. Okay, with nobody wanting to do that, we will invite anyone providing testimony uncommitted to the application to come forward. Okay. And then anybody providing testimony opposing the application?
Am I allowed to ask clarification questions?
We'll see if we can help you. Sure, come on up. Just make sure you state your name and write it down. So just so everybody knows,
This is opposing, right?
correct. If we can't, then staff will keep record of that and make sure they answer it. But it
So-
won't be tonight.
Cool, thank you. Name, Weston Dykeman. Couple clarification questions I had. One, it says on here, temporary signs do not involve or do not need a permit. I guess that will apply, say, we will not change any rules for realtors who sticks a sign in someone's yard for sale. No rule changes there. Secondly, it doesn't define construction sign. And what I'm reading on that is like if you have a large construction project and you want to advertise your construction business, there's no permit needed for that. However, I would ask, what about development signs? Because there's a lot of developments going around town that have large signs advertising their lots or whatever. And is there any restrictions on that? How long you can have the sign or whatever?
Okay, so what I can tell you from that is those kinds of signs are pertinent to the property and they're on private property. But if they are in the right-of-way, you still have to get a right-of-way permit for the sign. And I'm sure they have way more they'd like to add to that, and I would recommend that you call them tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, I think it's easy. I hope it's easy.
Okay, or they can answer it tonight when the meeting's over.
Yeah,
Okay,
Did you sign in?
maybe. I didn't have to sign in last time.
can I just, is there a reason we can't answer questions tonight? Okay, we'll keep track. I think it might be a good thing. It might make December's meeting shorter.
We're already here. These guys don't know about December's meeting.
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Gage Barker. I manage Molinelli's Jewelers. And I've just come tonight to voice my concern and possibly present a new perspective regarding the proposed sign reformation policy. As a business located in historic downtown Pocatello, Molinelli's faces its fair share of challenges, namely dwindling pedestrian traffic, high turnover rate in adjacent business, and strict historical preservation codes. The codes in question make it very difficult for a business to advertise from its current location due to signage restriction policy. It's very difficult to occupy downtown as a place of business, let alone advertise in downtown Pocatello, as you guys know. One avenue we found tremendous success in is our digital billboards that are located on the intersection of Quinn and Flandreau, the Yellowstone Oak Street billboards. It provides us an avenue to reach the main traffic of Pocatello and let our voice be heard in our business scene. Other business in downtown Pocatello were not so fortunate. The waiting list on billboards like the ones I mentioned are I can't address them, sorry. To my understanding, 2 years long, with the first right of refusal going to the businesses on the billboard. With a 2-year waiting list, one could not only say there's a high demand for billboards for businesses in Pocatello, but perhaps that there maybe aren't enough even. By restricting billboard hours as proposed, we further limit the reach of my downtown business. I can understand instituting a dimming policy on signage, but turning them off for 7 to 8 hours would result in crippling our business's reach significantly. I would ask that as we further deliberate on this policy, we consider the businesses that aren't Fred Meyer, car dealerships, or credit unions that have the ability to light up the whole of Yellowstone with their 30-foot tall signs, and consider the current and future businesses that are already shackled by historic preservation. Not a bad thing, but will further be stymied by instituting a policy like this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I was going to wait till other people spoke, but I'll go right ahead. My name's Thomas Klein. I'm just a resident here. I've been concerned about signs for years and written letters, and they've gone nowhere. So I'm delighted that that this new policy is being considered. I'm actually very in favor of it, although I actually would prefer to see the lights dim more like 9:30, which is when I go to bed. I just want to share that I think especially electronic signs are immensely distracting, and I don't feel like they enhance my life. As I was driving down 5th Street, I was thinking about this meeting, and I drove past a bank that I won't name, but their favorite color scheme is green, and I actually banked there. But and I noticed that they actually have an animated sign. So I'm thinking, are they violating the rules? And I'm thinking maybe we need to enforce more of what we already have on the books. But then as I continued further down, I saw a gigantic electronic billboard that first was advertising the fact that you could advertise on the billboard, and then was advertising that I should be a better dad. And after that, consider getting health insurance. I don't think anything's had to do with businesses here. So I feel that those sorts of things really make life less pleasant here. I think that's all my perspective, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas, would you set the clipboard?
Sure.
Never mind, go ahead. We'll let him sign it.
I'll sign that after you. I thought that was, you're supposed to be a for, not an against or whatever.
okay.
But guys, kind of give this
Yes,
to
thank you for asking.
Okay.
Do you want to give him the pile? We can
Oh, yeah.
pass them on.
Yeah, sure. This is pictures of the sign survey.
That's for when you guys throw tomatoes at us tonight.
Okay, well, I don't think anybody's going to do that. Frank Nuding, 6346 Old Ranch Road here in Pocatello. There's 3 components of the billboard or the sign ordinance that obviously I wrote and had interviewed in the newspaper about. Is our existing sign code actually is very restrictive and very good. And we have addressed this problem 2 or 3 years ago with council and also with planning and zoning. What we have here and what I've given to you is basically the part of the survey that was done by planning and zoning. And if you look at page 1 with circled with a 1, it says, please answer the following questions. Select all signs that enhance Yellowstone Avenue. None of these signs are on Yellowstone Avenue. They're in Salt Lake. So how can anybody in Pocatello make a determination that that's being represented as being in Pocatello? Because it's not. So I also asked in Freedom of Information Act, or got it from the city, how many actual billboard applications were received from the city in the last 2 years. There have been 2. 1 was never built and 1 is being built. So I don't know why we're singling out outdoor as a problem or a potential problem for Pocatello. I mean, 1 application or 1 actual sign being built in 2 years doesn't seem excessive to me. Number 2, we have an issue with the abandoned sign issue. As a commercial realtor, we have properties that sometimes sit for longer than 6 months, 8 months, maybe a year. On the new ordinance, they're asking us to actually have the signs claimed as abandoned and removed after 6 months if they're not actively advertising something in the building. And that goes on the property owner. I mean, some buildings stay on the market for a year, 2 years. So that's not something that anybody can really address. It's a flaw. And then the hours, on signage, this is number 3 for you guys, is turning these digital signs on and off is hard on the equipment. You spend $100,000 on a piece of equipment and you're turning it on and off, it will ruin it. It's just not really possible for you to be doing that. And so people that make significant investments for their business, turning signs off at 11 o'clock and then turn them on at 7, it doesn't make sense. All you're doing is asking them to basically ruin their equipment or to shrink the availability or their opportunity to increase or enhance their signage on their business. So, I mean, this has to be business friendly. Our existing code has worked for us for a long time.
I do want
Thank
to,
you.
one thing, yeah, thank you. One thing I did want to say is I could see why they use these signs, because if I was looking at these signs and it says, ask what you're in favor of, and it was Molinelli's, I'd say, yeah, I'm in favor of it. If it was Jared's, I wouldn't. So they use neutral signs that were not based off of
Pocatello.
what businesses we like and don't like.
You let me to respond to that?
No, I just wanted to bring that up.
Well,
And
no, but
then
you can't let-
I think if signs are still, and I'm just.
No, but I mean, when you look at that, you've got a stack.
I
of
said I
3
didn't want you
signs.
to respond.
Oh, I'm
Another
sorry,
thing
then I'm
is
done.
that I don't know, and I think they could answer this, but if it's still advertising that it's for rent, then it's not abandoned. It's still serving the purpose that it's there. And I did make a note about being hard of turning them off and on. That was a good comment. Thank you. Next.
I'm Rob Kirkham. I have a few concerns with the proposed application. Number one, I am concerned about the methodology that is being used to justify the change in the sign ordinance. As the city said, there were fewer than 400 respondents, and they spoke about how they were pleased with that turnout. Most of the respondents were not business owners, and almost 10% of the respondents didn't reside in Pocatello. I don't believe that the city sought out industry professionals when coming up with this sign ordinance, the sign ordinance. And I think that was an oversight, as evidenced by the turnout tonight. I'm a little concerned about legal non-conforming signs, although I do appreciate that in staff's comments, they mentioned that they would be adding the word sign to Title 17, but as it's currently written and anything that I was able to review in preparation for this meeting, there was no way for me to understand what the regulation would be for a legal non-conforming sign. And I think before any application should be approved, there ought to be opportunity for us to review that. I'm concerned also about the language with off-premise signs, not allowing billboards. I'm concerned about capping the current ownership and not allowing for any future competition in that marketplace. I'm concerned also with the abandoned sign issue, or specifically the safety and maintenance paragraph where it says, if any sign is determined to present immediate danger to public health, safety, or welfare, the city may remove it immediately. I think that opens the city up for liability in a takings situation, because there's no due process in that situation. The proposed amendment appears to be an attempt by the city to impose regulations and limit commercial speech, which is a protected class of speech according to the Supreme Court of the United States. And banning commercial speech in this way based on the results of a single survey with fewer than 400 participants does not serve a specific or significant governmental interest, and a total ban on a historically common and widely used form of speech is not narrowly tailored to a justifiable government interest. Lastly, I would like to address my concern on murals, where murals will be allowed without any permit, and they are specifically not allowed to have commercial speech incorporated into the murals, which is a matter of giving preferential treatment and a content-based decision, which is also problematic. So, thank you.
Thank you. I would tell you, I asked the same question about people. Why are people in Canada so concerned about our signs here? And it obviously goes to the IP address. And so it could have been somebody from Pocatello who was working there, something like that. All 10% of those people, I doubt. And I know 400 seems low. For Pocatello, it's good. So tell your friends to get out there and fill out these surveys. That's what they're there for. And I did write down your other comments so we can make sure that those are addressed. So I appreciate that.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Kent Marbo. I'm the market manager for Lamar Advertising, which is a national company, but I've been here for 37 years. And I'm here to add verbal testimony to our written testimony, which I hope you have from Lamar. Thank you. We oppose to the proposed sign code amendment to ban all off-premise advertising signs or billboards. And I mean that off-premise. I'm here to talk about off-premise, nothing about on. We do not see the need for a proposed change and feel that the responses of 400 people to a city survey does not rise to the level of public outcry necessary for a change. The responses from less than 1% of the local population to us is not enough to take action. Lamar has been operating our business and off-premise signs in this market for over 40 years, and we have always worked with the city staff and operated with the requirements of the city code, and again, do not see the need for a change. I believe this is my 6th time in my 37 years I've come to the city on something like this, so I'm used to this. We are asking you to keep the current sign code as it pertains to the billboards and it stands, which is actually restrictive enough to control off-premise signage and closely matches the Idaho State Code and all other cities in the state of Idaho where we maintain and operate our signs. Lamar has not applied for a sign permit from the city since 2017, and the fact that only 2 sign permits have been granted by the city in the last 2 years shows that this proposed change to the sign code to ban off-premise signs is overreaching and unnecessary. We also are against the proposed changes to sign lighting or the illumination of off-premise digital billboards. The current sign code already has language that addresses the brightness levels of digital billboards and restricts them to industry standards found and applied throughout the state of Idaho and across the country where they are allowed. Again, the current regulations on brightness levels are restrictive enough, and we have gone through that before in the city, and they are now running the way they should, and they always have with Lamar. We feel off-premise signs or billboards are getting lumped in with all signs on this proposed code amendment when the current requirements of the sign code as it pertains to off-premise signs or billboards is already restrictive enough to control the numbers as evidenced by the total number of permits requested and granted by the city recently and within the last 6 years. For this reason, we are opposed to the ban on off-premise signs or billboards. There is no reason or public need to ban them or restrict them any further. And on a side note, through my 37 years, we've been very helpful with public service. You probably see a lot of public service signs that go up for both local and national. And in fact, recently in the last month or two, Mayor Blad, our mayor of Pocatello, has asked me to help him out with a youth situation he has. He wants to use billboards for it, and of course, we will help him. So to me, that means
Time.
we're helping. Thank you. Perfect timing. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
And you wrote your name first, correct? Thank you.
I did right.
You don't have permission to hand those? Yeah. Said I'd give you a hard time.
Is that okay? Okay. Kirk Lipczynski, Pocatello Chubbuck Chamber of Commerce Membership Manager. I'm here to read a letter that was penned by our president and CEO that could not be here tonight. He is out of town on business. So, Planning and Zoning Commission members, on behalf of the membership of the Pocatello Chubbuck Chamber of Commerce, which includes the very smallest businesses in our community to the very largest businesses in our community, I would like to ask that this new sign ordinance not be put into place. There are many sign company professionals that can speak to the specific problems with this ordinance, so we're going to let them handle that. What we really want to speak about is the impact of the business community and especially the small business community. The last 4 years have been tough for the business community, but in general, but have been devastating for the small business retail community. We have seen so many small as well as large retail business establishments go out of business. Any new restrictions that hamper this community's ability to reach customers will not only make this only make this situation worse. Sorry, I'm not reading well. I would urge you to pull together a group of business people, sign company representatives, and other community members to look at what parts of this ordinance are okay and what parts are damaging to businesses' abilities to attract new customers. Sincerely, Matthew J. Hunter, President and CEO, Pocatello Chubbuck Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Michael Malcolm with Yesco Outdoor. I'm in opposition of this code. As mentioned earlier, we feel like the code that was currently in place was adequate. A lot of time and effort was spent in helping to craft that existing code. And there's a lot of alarming things that I'm seeing in here. I don't know if I can cover it all within 3 minutes. But one of the points that I want to make sure if for whatever reason you disregard what's being said today and you decide to continue to move forward with this, more clarification needs to be addressed, particularly as it pertains to the legal non-conforming signs. What does that mean moving forward? How are those legal non-conforming signs maintained to stay adequate? And what improvements can be made to those moving forward. You notice that some of those proposed legal non-conforming signs may be digital. Those digital signs have a life expectancy, so there will be needing to be maintenance and things moving forward on that. Some of the other concerns that I had in the code indicated that said any sign located so as to conflict with the clear visibility of a public devices controlling public traffic or to impair the safety of a moving vehicle by distracting the vision of the driver. Distracting is subject to interpretation. I think if you maybe labeled it as obstructing the vision of the driver, that might be more clear. But just to say if something's distracting, what's distracting to one person might not be distracting to someone else. And so I think that there needs to be some clarity on a lot of this stuff. I could go over numerous things. Again, in the aspect of time, as I was driving in here this evening, I've been here in Pocatello for 20 years. And a lot has happened with growth and change in this community. And it's going to continue to grow and continue to change. And I think that we've got, in an effort to try to make these changes in the code, I think it would be wise to address those professionals and individuals that can help provide input, industry standards that were mentioned earlier, as to what would be beneficial for helping this code be more useful for what it's intended for. So that's all I have.
Thank you. I give him crap too. You don't have
I wanted to make
permission.
sure, this is the letter from James Carpentier with the International Sign Association. You probably got a copy.
Oh,
but I wanted
yeah.
to make sure you got a copy of his recommendation. So he asked me, get a copy to them. So here I am. We're opposed to a...
What's your name, please?
I'm sorry, it's Jeff Young. I'm with Young Electric Sign Company. We're a 103-year-old business, and we have served literally thousands of customers in this area. And so we come with a hope that we can be a resource to you to help craft a code that works for you and works for us. Right now in its current draft, there's a series of things that I would like to address and perhaps ask you to reconsider a couple of things. First, thank you for the survey and thank you for all the hard work. On safety, Virginia Tech Transportation Institute established the 2-second threshold of safety. 2-second threshold. Beyond 2 seconds, unsafe. The federal government commissioned a study. Glances at electronic signs were no more than 1.3 seconds, usually under 1 second. Okay? So in terms of the threshold of safety, what Michael was saying, signs do not create a danger to drivers. And brightness, we can usually mitigate a lot of the concerns by brightness. I have a knit gun. Not many people own a knit gun. If you point a knit gun at your high beams on your car, or even your low beams on your car, it reads error. That's how bright they are. And so what's so interesting to us is signs get a bad rap. No one's talking about headlights in cars. They're moving too. So I'd ask you to consider, are cars putting us in a dangerous situation, headlights of cars, because they're significantly brighter than signs are. So I just mentioned, we want to work with you to come up with a brightness standard that helps mitigate a lot of the issues. We are in favor of animation on premise. Our business community wants to animate their signs to communicate their message. Incidents or duration of view is different than how many times they look at a sign. The changing sign draws someone's attention more. That's why it's valuable. That doesn't mean they're looking at it longer. So they look at it more, but they're looking at it for less than 1 second, which is a safe thing. So I'd mention that. We're opposed to the curfew. I want to mention just size. Beneath Applebee's, it says Pocatello State. Do you know where all that is on that wall? It's 528 square feet. The proposed 80 square feet would include the state of Idaho only, to give you a sense. It's 15% the size of what that sign is. 80 square feet along the freeway is not appropriate and not good. I want to mention that the non-conforming status is a hot mess. You think it's going to make the city look better? It's going to provide a disincentive for customers to replace their existing signs because they want to hold on to the ones that are bigger. So I need you to consider that. A more liberal code allows someone to say, I can do something new and different here and put up a better, more beautiful sign. And I think I'll end with that. Thank you.
Don't forget to sign in. Anybody else would like to give testimony?
Good evening, Rick Magnuson. I'm here on behalf of the Idaho Advertising Federation and the Pocatello Advertising Federation, both sort of professional industry trade organizations. We represent advertisers, the advertising industry, including media. We've got clients here tonight, media partners, et cetera. I'll make this pretty brief for you. We're certainly opposed to the recommendations and the change of the sign ordinance for many of the reasons that have been stated this evening. We've been instrumentally involved in, back when this was handled in 2017 with City Council, we're instrumental in helping that get defeated. We've also been involved in it in the Boise market, the Nampa market, Meridian. There are a lot of problems and challenges. You've heard several of them tonight with the survey itself, as well as the methodology and then the response and the subsequent report that's been put together. My understanding is you're extending the vote tonight into the 13th. Is that
We have
correct?
not made that decision yet.
Okay. At any rate, what I'd like to do, if it's okay, is submit the white paper that we've put together based on all of those that each of you would have a chance to read and review. And there's no reason for me to be redundant
Thank
with
you
the
for
other
asking.
comments. So there should be enough for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to provide testimony opposing?
Good evening. My name is David Lee with Young Electric Sign Company. I also oppose the proposed changes to the sign code. As before mentioned, there's so many things to delve into, and I don't have time to cover them all, unfortunately. As referenced earlier, though, there was the mention in the summary about some people not finding signs to be important because we already have a destination in mind. And once we get there, it's great that there's a monument sign or something to indicate that. Which is interesting in its premise because I don't know of many people that ever leave their house with the intent to just drive around Pocatello until they find something that looks appealing for them to stop their car. When I left my house tonight, I had intentions to come to this building. And so that was my destination. And so signs do serve a purpose, though, what we call top-of-mind awareness. And so I might not stop at Grease Monkey today, to get my oil changed, but I could see an advertisement on their sign that says $10 off. And so I might go back there the next day. And that's the point of having a good, adequate sign code that lets people advertise their businesses for future reference. Maybe not right now, but for future reference. Gosh, so many more things to talk about. One of the things that seemed really odd, and there's a lot in the sign code, but maybe I read this wrong, but it says that something like damaged sign faces would have to be replaced within 15 days or 2 weeks or something like that. I'm just here to let you know that that's almost impossible to do. These are not cars we can just go down and buy one at the car store or the car lot and pick a red one or a blue one, right? These are custom manufactured signs that have to be designed, sized just right, approved, and then once they go into the manufacturing process, that can take 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum just to get that done. So that's something that does also need to be addressed. Lastly, I would like to mention, if I have some time here, in your survey, it was interesting that some of the things that people oppose most, it says that flags, 65% of people oppose flags. So are we moving towards banning the American flag because some people find it offensive that flags are flying in town? Pole signs, it says that 51% of people don't approve of pole signs. Lastly, as my time's about to expire, I would love to find out if anyone knows how big the sign is that sits on this property. I measured it today just to find out. It's 168 feet. So that's more than double what your maximum allowed would be. So next time you come into town or into your office, just look at that sign and determine if you think it's super big and super offensive, because it's not. It's adequate. Thank you.
Thank you. You made some really good points. I just want to remind you that we are volunteers. We don't work here. We're commission members. So we don't come to work here. We come to volunteer here. Anybody else like to speak? One of you can sign your name and one of you can talk and then you could switch. I'm getting hungry here, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Mike Seibert, 1745 Pocatello Creek Road. And most everything I was planning on saying has already been said. And basically I always thought the existing sign ordinance was working fine, and there's actually no reason to change it. And I'm really opposed to the elimination of the billboards section of it. We do need the advertisement. If you eliminate any expansion of the billboard, it's just going to put the existing sign companies a little more control, and the cost of your advertisement is just going to go up because you're eliminating any potential competition. And and to me, brightness, especially in the commercial, isn't that bad. And I always believe that as far as lighting goes, crime is inversely proportional to lighting. A little more brightness when you're going around, you can get out of the car and walk and go into your house or whatever, and it just seems to be a little safer. And it's always a lot of people that do complain of lighting, but we got a nice building up on Fairway that's lit. It lights up the whole sky and up there, and I drive by it and all I can say is, what a beautiful building. And that seems to be fine. So anyway, the 6-month removal of the sign when it's not in use is ridiculous for the reasons they said before. And the non-conforming part of the ordinance that proposes kind of wacky. So anyway, I'd prefer just leave it the way it is.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign your name, please.
Hi, I'm Nikki Johnson. I'm with Blaze Sign. We are against the proposed changes for several reasons that have already been mentioned. But I can tell you, as a sign company, the number one complaint or conversation that I have with the small business, the new small businesses especially that call in, are they can't find me. I need a better sign. I need a better location for my sign. And they're struggling as it is, but these changes, proposed changes, if this happens this way, it's just going to open up a can of worms with the small businesses here in town. They go into these new businesses with not the full picture of marketing themselves or whatever, but once they realize how important that sign is, it's let's get it up, let's get it now, let's get it as visible as possible. So I'm just saying you're going to open a can of worms if these things go through. I haven't had a chance to really go through all of the changes proposed, but as they've talked about the time limits on different things, that is not possible whatsoever. We have things that come into play as far as weather. As a sign company going to change out a face, okay, we have till the end of the week to do it. We're not going to put a man up in a bucket truck 30 feet in the air when we've got winds. So it's another week out. And then, something else is happening that day, or it's the middle of summer. They're going to touch a metal sign, and it's just these time constraints are ridiculous. Size-wise, what you're trying to shrink them down to is, as they mentioned, the size of the thing up there for ISU. A stop sign, just the face of a stop sign is 9 square feet. You just don't realize, it looks tiny when it's up there. You're thinking, we really want to bring it down, but we're talking about putting a postage stamp on a wall. And if you want to cause more chaos with traffic or whatever, people trying to figure out where they're going, where to turn, that's a way to do it. Shrink all those signs and really, shake it up like that. So absolutely opposed. Also, billboards. I think the way we've got it lined out right now, we're so limited on new billboards going up anyway that changing that or cutting back on any new billboards in town. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
I'll sign in mine. My name's Kirk Kirkham, 141 Jefferson. I've been a Pocatello, Idaho boy for 71 years. And we've been through this rodeo before with the signs. The difference is in the past, the staff would pick up the phone and say, hey, would you guys come over and serve on a committee? And we're trying to craft this thing and we'd like your ideas. I'd like to strongly urge that before anything is done here, that you sit down and give us more than 3 minutes to express our concerns about this. I think that's only fair. We're in Pocatello, we're business people, and we should have that opportunity to have more than 3 minutes. Thank you.
Real quick, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak here tonight. You can take as much time as you want writing or calling staff outside of the public hearing, and we see that, just so you know. Next, anybody else?
Hi, Victor Watts, Pocatello.
Will you state your last name again, please?
Victor Watts, Pocatello.
Thank you.
I just feel like there's too much government and something like a sign. I think it's all very subjective. I mean, if we're offended by signs, there's other things that are more offensive than signs, like Simplots, the dirtiness, the railroad and all that dirty area, the trash on the freeway. There's all these other things that are a lot more. And then another thing I'd like to say is that the reason why the property taxes are so high along Yellowstone is because of the traffic count. And the traffic count businesses want to have their signs there. They're paying these high property taxes to have their signs. So I think the existing code is fine. And I think that there should be more on a one-on-one basis, because we have corporations that they already have their, every Starbucks is going to have a certain way they're going to do their signs, McDonald's. But then you have small business owners that don't have very much money. They can't afford even big electric signs. So I think you need to take the property tax into, maybe give a credit where they don't have to pay their property tax for 1 year to get a better sign. And I'd just like to see the city maybe analyze the property a little better, or if they have a billboard, they have a pole sign, that adds property value. We're getting more property taxes. It lowers property taxes for other people in the community. So I think you need to look at the businesses individually, and I think the existing sign is just on the size of the building, and I think that's good, based on what kind of sign they can put up. Your car count, they could use that as a determination of what type of sign can be put in a certain area. Why not have billboards along the freeway? As long as they're paying property tax on it, that lowers property taxes for the rest of us. I think along Yellowstone too, but I just think it's just very subjective to say, oh, you can't do this, can't do that. Because if we all had our own opinions on how to do things, I'd close Simplots. I don't want to look at that. Junkyards by the freeways. I mean, there's lots of things that we can complain about, but I think the property taxes and how it gets paid for, you need to look at that and analyze it.
Thank you. One thing I want to make sure you guys are aware of, that large companies have to follow the exact same rules as small companies. And that's why we are here in our role, to make sure that no matter who you are, you follow the same rules, whether it be the ones that are in place or a new one that would be approved. Okay, anybody else?
Hi.
Did you sign in? Will you do so, please?
Rich Kirkham. In 1947, Gregory Peck starred in a film. It was entitled Gentleman's Agreement. Peck played the part of a journalist who posed as a Jew to investigate anti-Semitism. Turns out there was a gentleman's agreement that when it came to Jews, it was just understood you didn't rent them apartments or give them hotel rooms, or that you maybe didn't sell them real estate in certain parts of town. It was really a great film. It is a great film. I suggest everyone watch it. Because they were an easy minority to target, they could easily be discriminated against, and they were very much outnumbered. So it was a very powerful film, resonated with a lot of Americans. And today we're considering a ban on billboards. This is a form of discrimination. It's aimed at an easy minority, namely advertisers and sign owners. Most people are neither of those two groups. Many would like to just sit back and say, it'd be nice to get rid of those pesky billboards because I really just don't like them. They're a nuisance, they're a public hazard, they detract from the beauty of our community. But all of this, is this really the community we want to have, where we're going to, first of all, it's a protected form of speech. Commercial speech has a higher protected right than property rights under the Constitution, and it is a constitutional right. Second of all, it's a total ban. It's overreaching, I think. It violates real fundamental constitutional principles, which is what I'm trying to speak to today, is about the constitutionality. Third, government really shouldn't and can't determine that some displays are appropriate and some are not. For example, legislating, for example, that public art is okay while commercial speech is not, is a government form of arbitration. over what the content is all about. Finally, when government limits the rights of citizens, even if those citizens are a minority, they can do so only when the proposed limitation serves a significant, legitimate, and specific governmental interest, which must be narrowly tailored. Total bans, by definition, are not narrowly tailored. They're very broad. Supreme Court ruled on that in 2008. They've ruled since in many cases. A lot of legislation on this. We don't all like the same things. We don't always agree on the same issues all the time, but we should all agree that we don't want to limit speech. Speech should be a very high priority for all of us, and we should protect that right. Thank you.
Give me just a second, please. You could always start walking forward if somebody else wants to speak. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Okay. So it's very apparent to me that there's a lot of things that still need to be addressed here. Staff recommended at the very beginning, they are aware of that. So I am not going to close the public hearing tonight. I'm going to leave it open, and you guys will have time to ask more questions, provide more comments. It will be on the agenda to continue this on December 13th, Wednesday, December 13th. So I do want to remind you in the meantime that it's very important that, and commission also, that we don't violate open meeting laws. And you guys don't want to make it so that we can't vote, right? We've sat here all night and listened to all your concerns and made notes. You want us to be able to vote. So after this meeting, please don't ask us questions about signs or sign codes. If you would like to talk about anything else, we'd be more than happy to talk to you. Staff is who you need to talk to about that. And so with that, I close the meeting.